Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brenda and I'm a DACA recipient, which is why I'm making this video. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my whole DACA renewal timeline this time around, and I'm also gonna give you guys a whole detailed explanation of what I submitted for my advanced parole application as a first timer with no lawyer. So I didn't use a lawyer. I was going to use one, but then I got encouraged to do it on my own, which was the best thing I could have done because lawyer fees are like up the roof. The lawyer I inquired about for advanced parole was asking for $1,500 for the AP application, and that's not including the AP fee, because on top of that I would still have to pay $630. So yeah, over $2,000. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is my DACA renewal timeline. So it took a total of 4 months for it to get approved and to receive my EAD card, which I have here in my hands. And I'm really happy because I thought it was going to take longer. I've heard people who've waited 6 to 7 months just to receive their EAD card or get an approval notice, which is crazy. So I was getting a little nervous because it was getting super close to the expiration date, maybe like a month or so. And I was literally super stressed out because I also have an advanced parole application pending that I submitted right after my DACA renewal. I didn't want that to get rejected because, you know, my DACA was inactive. So I sent in my DACA renewal application on March 11. I mailed it. And then on March 12th, I got a notice through text that they received my application, and I was really happy. I was like, okay, this is going pretty fast. Then a couple weeks later, I think like 2 or 3 weeks, I forgot, I received my notice that they were going to reuse my biometrics, which I was happy because I didn't have to go to the application center, you know, to do the whole biometric thing. Fast forward to July, I still didn't receive any notice, and it had already been past 105 days of me waiting. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call UCIS, and that is exactly what I did. So I called the number on the UCIS website. I'll leave it right here. I called on July 1st, which I believe it was a Monday, but I called, I said InfoPass, so that way I can talk to a live person. I talked to a UCIS rep. I told them, you know, it's been more than 105 days that I've been waiting for an approval notice and they haven't got back to me. I went ahead and asked her if there's any way to expedite because, you know, I've been waiting for a while. She said the only way that they were able to expedite is if I had a financial distress situation or if I had a humanitarian reason. I did tell her that I had an advanced parole application pending, but you know, that wasn't part of the reasons that she gave me. So I pretty much didn't do anything, and I told her, okay, thank you for your help and bye. And then the next day, July 2nd, bam, I got an approval notice. So I don't know if that was coincidence. I really think it wasn't. I think they just kind of looked at my application, kind of like pushed it like to the top or something, but I don't know. I think it really does help if you call them if you have been waiting for your application for a while. So go ahead and call them. You have nothing to lose, and the worst thing they could say is no, which that's what they said to me, but it got approved the next day. Just give it a try. I got the approval notice on July 2nd, and then on July 12th, I got my EAD card right in the mail. It took 4 months exactly to get my approval and get my EAD cards. Before I talk about my advanced parole application, I do want to recommend 2 Facebook groups that helped me so much in making this whole process so much smoother and less stressful. So these are it right here is Spanglish Dreamers and also DACA Dreamers together, and they are absolutely amazing. You're gonna find free guides on how to apply for advanced parole, step-by-step guide. A lot of DACA recipients who have gone through the same thing or are just applying for the first time. There's others that have applied 2, 3, 4 times, even 5 times. So it is an amazing community that you can always ask questions, and there will always be someone who will answer. So I am really happy I found those 2 groups, and I hope you can join them too. Now moving on to my advanced parole application. Submitted my advanced parole application on April 23rd. I mailed it and they received it on April 26th. Then a few weeks later, they told me they were going to reuse my biometrics. They sent me a notice in the mail. So yeah, I've been waiting ever since. I know it could take around 3 to 4 months to get an approval notice, but it has been 3 months. So I'm thinking maybe around 4 months. So hopefully by mid-August, they'll tell me if I got approved, hopefully, cross my fingers. Anyway, there are 3 reasons that you can apply for. There's educational, professional, and also humanitarian. I went ahead and applied under humanitarian reason due to my grandmother being sick. Unfortunately, she's not doing well, so I asked to go visit her. Hopefully by the end of this year, I can go ahead and go to Mexico, which is actually my home country. And yeah, I'm excited, and hopefully I can go. I am praying to God that everything comes out well. I think the most time-consuming thing out of this whole process was translating documents from Spanish to English. You have to submit any document that's under a foreign language into English for UCIS. So yeah, that was a bit stressful because there were a couple of documents that I had to, translate, and thank goodness, and I am really thankful to God that my sister helped me out with like 2 documents, which was a lot of help. We spent hours. I think we spent like 5 hours translating. Like it was crazy. I am not 100% fluent in Spanish, but I'm really comfortable in reading, writing, and speaking it. But obviously I'm not like professional or anything like that. I feel like Google was my best friend in translating all the documents. When there was a word that I didn't understand or I just didn't know how to translate it, I was just Googling like crazy. And it's crazy because sometimes when you just use Google Translate, you have to really make sure you're using the same lingo, like the same language that it's translating and flowing correctly, because you don't want to just translate whatever and submit that to UCIS, because that's not credible, right? So for UCIS, I have to prove 2 things. I have to prove my legal relationship with my grandmother. Second, I have to prove that it is a humanitarian reason. So in order to prove our relationship, I just have to simply show my birth certificate, my mother's birth certificate, and my grandmother's birth certificate. Pretty much in my birth certificate, it only shows my mom. So in my mom's birth certificate, it shows my grandmother's name. And then in my grandmother's birth certificate, it shows that it's her, like her identity. So I had to use those 3 in order to prove that my grandmother is legally my maternal grandmother. That proves that relationship. Now, the second thing I have to prove is the humanitarian reason, and that's by showing proof that my grandmother is in fact sick. So I had to contact my grandmother, ask her for a doctor's note, kind of like a doctor's evaluation note, stating the condition and her information, her birthday, her name, all that stuff. It does have to have a letterhead, so it has to be a professional letter. They have to have some type of medical license number or something like that on that letter to prove, that it's valid. Anyway, so in Mexico, they use WhatsApp so much, and I have never used WhatsApp in my life, so I went ahead and downloaded it on my phone. That way I was able to communicate back and forth with my grandmother, and she was able to send me her birth certificate and the doctor's note via WhatsApp. So she just sent me a photo. I did ask her kindly to please make sure that the photos were clear and also that there were no cutouts, and she did. She sent those photos to me. There was a few hiccups here and there where I think she had sent me like RX receipts or something like that, so it wasn't a doctor's note necessarily, but I told her that I needed a doctor's note, with the signature and all that good stuff with the letterhead. So I got a birth certificate and doctor's note via WhatsApp. So that was my supporting evidence, birth certificates and my grandmother's doctor's note. So now I'm gonna go ahead and talk about everything that I included in the application. First off, let's talk about what I included in the application. The first thing I included was the 5-page I-131 travel document application. It is the easiest thing you're gonna submit in this application packet. This application is 5 pages. Most of the things it is asked are pretty straightforward. There are maybe like 3 things where I was like, what should I put here? What do I do? And for those 3 things, I Googled it. I went ahead and researched on those Facebook groups that I mentioned earlier, and they were so helpful. I think I answered most of my questions there, so I was really happy. It did take maybe like an hour for me to finish that, just because it was my first time. I want to make sure there was no errors, so it wasn't bad. I think if I do it next time, it will be a lot more simple. The second thing I added was the form G1145. That is the e-notification application form. That form pretty much is the most simple form ever. It just states your name, your email, your number, pretty much giving them authorization to send you notices on your case or any updates on your case via text or email. The third thing I added was the application form fee, which is $630. I actually paid that with a personal check. I feel really comfortable paying with a personal check because I pay my DACA renewals with a personal check. I've never had an issue. So that's why I went ahead and submitted a personal check for this application. You can also pay with a money order and or debit card or credit card, But if you do pay with a debit card or credit card, you have to fill another form. I do highly suggest against it because I've heard a lot of people, especially in those Facebook groups, that they say they had horrible experience. Yes, when they take out the money, they just deny it. I think it's fraud. I don't know, but there's just been so much chaos with that form, so I would suggest to don't go that route. The fourth thing I added was my declaration statement, which I am just putting in writing my reason to travel. Make it short and sweet, but make it really heartfelt, make it very emotional. You want to make it sure that you are telling a story why you need to go and make this trip. Like, for example, for me, it is humanitarian reasons, so I'm kind of giving them a little backstory of the relationship between my grandmother and I, and how important she is to me, and why this trip to Mexico is going to be life-changing, not only because I'm going to be there to support my grandmother, but also, you know, to reunite with my cultural roots, with my home country that I haven't been there for over 20 years. Just make sure you really express yourself in that letter, and do not make it more than one page. You want to make sure you just one page. Try to give them as much as you can, and also state that if you are not giving this permission to travel out of the country, that you will not travel, you know, without permission. I'm gonna try my best to put maybe some type of example here. If not, you can always join those Facebook groups. They have so many guides that you can use in order to write your declaration statement. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go over the identification documents that I added in my application packet. So the first thing I added were two 2x2 passport photos. I went to Walgreens to take these pictures. I think it was like $16, $18, I forgot. Second thing I submitted, well, these are gonna be a few things, but I submitted copies of my social security card, my EAD card, and my driver's license. So all of those, I kind of put them together in one page, copies front and back of those documents. The third thing I submitted was a copy of my current passport. And this is very important. You want to make sure your passport does not expire like 6 months from the day you are potentially going to travel. If your passport is about to expire soon, I highly suggest that you go ahead and go to the Consulado de Mexico or Consulado of wherever country you're from to go ahead and get that. You don't necessarily need it in order to submit your application packet. You can go ahead and submit your application packet without a copy of your passport, but you will need it when, you know, they do approve your application and then you have to travel. So the fourth thing I added in my application under identification documents was the DACA renewal notice receipt. I went ahead and applied for DACA renewal on March 12th, so I got this notice like a few weeks later that they received it. So that's the one I included, but you can include your approval notice. The reason why I didn't include my approval notice was because I had just submitted my renewal, so I didn't receive my approval notice when I submitted my AP application. So now moving on to the supporting documents, I already kind of went over this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of reiterate what I added. So I added the birth certificate, the medical letter, all the translations for all those documents, and also a certification statement stating that I am fluent in both English and Spanish. Although remember, I'm not 100% fluent, but I'm fluent enough in order for me to translate and feel comfortable to translate each document. So I went ahead and just did a little certification statement. I signed it, I dated, and that was that. The most consuming part out of this whole application is the translations, especially if you're gonna do it on your own. If you're not gonna do it on your own, that's fine. You can use a notary service that translates, you know, from Spanish to English or whatever language you are trying to get translations for. On top of my application, I added a beautiful cover letter, which I'm gonna give you guys a sample of the cover letter I used right here, so you guys can kind of get an idea of all the documents that I just went over and I submitted, and also just kind of give you guys an idea on your own cover letter. This cover letter is non-mandatory to include, but it is super duper recommended because that way you give the UCIS officer who's reviewing your application a better look into what you submitted. So that cover letter, obviously I removed all my personal information and I just gave you a full-on sample. I know this is a fully loaded video, and I really hope that if you're a DACA recipient on the fence in applying for advanced parole, especially if this is your first time and you're just so fearful, you're afraid and you just don't know what to do, or you're still kind of on the fence of like, should I do it, should I not? This is your sign to go ahead and do it. So many stories on those Facebook groups that are so encouraging, so motivating to do it, and that's what motivated me to go ahead and just do it. Also, watching other people's YouTube videos on them doing advanced parole has motivated me and encouraged me to go ahead and do this process, and I did it. And don't be like me, don't wait 10 years to finally do this and have this opportunity. I wish I would have done it sooner. I've probably already gone a couple times, but you know, things happen for a reason. I'm a great believer in that, and maybe it just wasn't my time, but now it's my time. I'm gonna do it. Take advantage. You can do it too. And remember, you don't need a lawyer. Those Facebook groups have so many stories. There's people who've had deportation orders, who go on advanced parole, come back with no issues. There's people who had multiple illegal entries and they go back to their home country or whatever country they asked, you know, to go to and got approved. They come back with no issues. I think the only issue is if you lied to them. If you lied to the UCIS officers that you've had. Like, you know, if you had a criminal record and you did not state that in your application, then obviously you're gonna have an issue. As long as you're truthful and you know, submit things that are correct, you have nothing to be scared of. So please, this is your sign, apply. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to go ahead and answer them, put them in the comment section. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video right here. I hope you all have a great day, great night whenever you're watching this. And remember, no hay mal que por bien no venga, which pretty much means find the silver lining in every situation, especially the negative ones. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.